Continuing from the previous episode 1400. Is the battle between the Supremes? In Licheng's territory, countless figures raised their heads and stared at the tens of thousands of meters in the sky, where the terrifying energy covered the sky and the sun, constantly erupting deafening explosion sound. There is a supreme power that convinces everyone, Duo Tianong, the overlord of Dongzhou, and two enemies who are trying to provoke the dignity of the overlord of Dongzhou. Gu Master, you can't lose. Come on, Valley Master. Forging Valley is invincible. Most of the huge crowd were uninformed people, but looking at the extremely evil aura in the sky, they also noticed something, immediately clenched their fists, and cheered for the enemy. Boom! A burst of heart-pounding fluctuations suddenly dispersed from the center of the explosion, and then the body of the yellow scorching sun and the blood soul exploded in an instant, and a wave of destruction erupted. Retreat! Go back! Even if Xiao Yan in the distance had long expected, the two five-star fighting immortals probably did not fall so easily, but when he felt the energy ripples that could easily obliterate him, he couldn't help his scalp numb, and his head was numb. Without returning, he fled towards the bottom. Crash! The terrifying wave that erupted from the complete detonation of the yellow scorching sun and the blood soul guard was enough to easily obliterate any four-star fighting immortal, so after Xiao Yan made a sound, the other 8 leaders also retreated abruptly. Wang buzzing, the exploding U-bow slowly dissipated, and suddenly 3 figures were still standing upright in the tens of thousands of meters in the sky. How can it be? Impossible. 5-star fighting immortal late stage? Isn't your body restricted by the origin of the king of the Burning Soul clan? How is it possible to restore the power of the peak? The explosion just dissipated, and the firecrime suddenly turned his face into shame. In addition, the soul was stunned and screamed again and again, but Du Tianong, on the other hand, seemed to be nothing. If you are not prepared, how can you try to obliterate you 2 5-star fighting immortals with one person's strength? To be able to harvest the 5 soul guards of the Soul Palace and the 2 Huo Sin envoys of Sin, this time the plan is really perfect. Duo Tianong held the Lei scepter tightly in his hand and looked down. With the help of his 3 major immortal weapons, he is now invincible among the 5-star fighting immortals. Little Chops, it's all your fault. After a while, Han Qinmo's attention under the black fog was focused on Xiao Yan, who was 100 meters away, apparently able to expel the Burning Soul clan. The origin of the king is only holy flame. Wing Om. Xiao Yan couldn't help shivering when he was so solidified by the 5-star fighting immortal powerhouse. It's time to end. Facing Han Qinmo's move, Duo Tianong waved his hand at will, and immediately shook his coercion away. Humph! Although the plan failed, it's not that easy to arrest me. And at this time, I'm afraid that the inside of your knife-forging Thunder Valley has already been wiped out, so my purpose has been achieved. Huo Guiji, our account will be reckoned in the future. Duan Tianong, this guard won't play with you anymore. See you next time. This guard will definitely bring back the old and new hatreds together. Han Qinmo snorted coldly, and bursts of sorrow sounded in the dark fog. Want to run? Dongzhou, didn't you just come when you said it, and leave when you said it? Duan Tianong sneered, his overlord aura showed no doubt. The legs and feet are on me, whether to go or stay, it's not up to you. Farewell, Han Qinmo said with a gloomy smile, and then the black robe suddenly swelled up, and then a gloomy ghostly energy kept squirming, and it instantly covered his real body. Xiao Yan, let me use the fire. Du Tianong also knew that the organization of the Soul Palace was too mysterious. If it was allowed to escape, it would cause extremely tyrannical sequelae, so no matter what it was said, it would not be allowed to escape. Okay. Xiao Yan nodded abruptly when he heard the words, and then the khaki-yellow holy flame crystal in his body suddenly left his body and shot away at Duan Tianong. At that time, Xiao Yan's aura was also wilted. Holy flame crystal? Death to this envoy. The Huo Sin envoy in the injured state was obviously a lamb to be slaughtered, but when he saw the prismatic holy flame crystal, he suddenly shot, because in their sins, they were in control of the seal suppression. Holy flame method. Go away. Huo Sin made a violent figure, chasing directly at Sheng Yanjing, but when he was about to get Sheng Yanjing, he was kicked out by Du Tianong, and his body flew upside down, like a dead dog in general. The face is hideous. After all, The difference between the early stage of 5-star Fighting Immortal and the late stage of 5-star Fighting Immortal is too great, not to mention Du Tianong in his heyday and Huo Zunshi in an injured state. The difference in strength between the two is too great. Susu. Sol Qinmo turned into a black mist of hundreds of feet, and his body was shrouded in it, but this space had been completely sealed by Duo Tianong. If he wanted to escape, it would obviously take a lot of time. Wang buzzing. The khaki-yellow holy flame crystal just poured into Duo Tianhong's hands, and suddenly droplets of khaki-yellow liquid emerged suddenly, like a supreme being surrounded by flames and thunder. Saint Flame can be borrowed, as long as the Master of Saint Flame agrees and is willing. Even though Saint Flame leaves the Master of Saint Flame for a very short time, it will return to its body. Wang Om. Surrounded by khaki flames and gray thunderbolts, Duo Tianong immediately came into the black mist without hesitation, and the dazzling aura was undoubtedly on display, and Han Qinmo's real body was also in such a tyrannical aura. Down, reflected in Duo Tianhong's eyes. The power of the holy flame is not only to deal with foreign evil races, but also has miraculous effects on some spooky and eerie guys in the ghost world of the Soul Temple. Soul body? Duo Tianong frowned when he saw Sol Qinmo swimming around in the black fog. Obviously, the identity of the Soul Palace is too mysterious, even he doesn't know the specific identity, but now he looks at it. Couldn't help but be surprised. Wang Om. Sol Qinmo was like a human body at this time, but the whole body was colorless and transparent, which was a symbol of the soul's weight, and even above the soul body, blood-colored chains suddenly emerged, and his body was smashed. To set off more mysterious. No wonder there are some people who are hated by people. The next moment, his eyes were looking around, but he saw thousands of weak souls in the black fog, escaping around, trying to leave the black fog, but the black fog seems to have some kind of special confinement. No matter how they escape, they cannot do without the black fog. Damn it. I can't think of my dignified Soul Palace 5 soul guards, and there is today. Sol Qinmo, who was found to be his true body, laughed at himself, and his voice was full of anger. In the current situation, I am afraid that it is too late to escape. Fall together. Susu. In an instant, Han Qinmo's blood-colored chains suddenly pulled back, and there were waves of tumbling blood-colored black clouds on the surface of the illusory soul body. Diffused out. Blow yourself up. I blew myself up in the eyes of Duo Tianong in the late 5-star Fighting Immortal. It wasn't a wise choice. Since you caused the disaster in Dongzhou this time, let it end with the failure of the two of you. If it wasn't for keeping you guys, I'm afraid that at this time, you are already dead souls under the sword in my hands. A sound of contempt sounded, and suddenly gray thunder and khaki flames emerged at the same time, and then the soul and weakness were easily removed. The fiery sins under the shackles are bound up. Solving these two culprits, the Eastern Continent difficulty, also announced the end. Mobile version update fastest URL. Continuing from the previous episode 1401. Hoo. It's over. The 8 leaders in midair looked at Du Tianong, who was like a thunder emperor in the sky, and used thunder to completely suppress the invincible Huo Xin envoy and Sol Qinmo in the eyes of the 8 of them. Everyone couldn't help but feel a trace of respect in their hearts. The overlord of Dongzhou, Duan Tianong, deserves his name. As long as Dongzhou has his existence, then Dongzhou will be inexhaustible. The Valley Lord is mighty. The Valley Lord is mighty. The Valley Master is mighty. A mighty voice suddenly gathered from all directions of Licheng, with a majestic momentum, like rolling thunder. You guys, go back early. This time the plan is my fault. Fortunately there is no fault. Duan Tianong returned Sheng Yanjing to Xiaoyan, and immediately opened his mouth to the other 8. However, although everyone was a little curious about this holy flame crystal, they didn't see the power of holy flame, and there were other things in their minds, so naturally they couldn't care about these things. The owner of the valley is very polite. If it wasn't for you at the last moment, I'm afraid we... Tan Chen laughed. The catastrophe is over. You should go back and settle the people in the city. I am afraid that your respective forces have also been bloodbathed, and you still need to go back to preside over the overall situation. Duo Tianong glanced at the many magnificent people below, and said helplessly, after all, fighting will inevitably cause damage. In this case, let's go first. The blood-clothed sect master said, and then the 8 people also fell into the Thunder City, and went away to appease the injured people. The Power and Forge Thunder Valley are the main ones, so they naturally want to go back to their respective powers to preside over the overall situation. Little guy, you have good guts. Seeing that there were only himself and Xiao Yan left in the sky, Duan Tianong put away his offensive and smiled at Xiao Yan as if he were looking at him lovingly. Senior is really a good way. Xiao Yan heard the words, clenched his fists and smiled. Obviously, although Tianong was smiling on the surface, he used the strength of one person to turn the tide and defeat the two 5-star fighting immortal powerhouses. This strength made Xiao Yan. Some admire. Let's go. First follow me back to the Thunder Valley of Forging Swords. You are a big part of this disaster. But before discussing the merits, you still need to go to the Thunder Tomb. Duan Tianong said with a smile. Lei Tomb. Xiao Yan nodded immediately after hearing the words. Apparently many of the participating disciples were still among them. The entrance to the Thunder Tomb has been destroyed, so you need to go and reset it. This is the Space Array Scroll. Just take it to the Tomb of Thunder, and it will naturally rebuild the channel. The catastrophe has just ended, and there is a shortage of manpower. This matter is none other than you. Duan Tianong continued, not giving Xiao Yan any chance to react. I'm happy to help. Xiao Yan heard the words, nodded lightly, and then directly took the silver scroll in Duo Tianhong's hand. A strong space force emerged from the silver scroll, which was obviously a special scroll used to build a space channel. Let's go. Go back to the Thunder Valley of Forging Knives first. The entrance of the Thunder Tomb needs to be entered from the valley. After Duan Tianong finished speaking, he waved his hand and directly gave the Huo Xin Envoy and Soul Qinmo to his subordinates, and took Xiao Yan to the Forging Knife Thunder Valley. Forged Knife Thunder Valley. At this time, the Thunder Valley of the Forging Knife was quiet, and even the scene of the blood flowing into the river was slowly cleaned up, and it did not look like a place where people were slaughtered. Wang buzzing. The space channel squirmed slightly, and the figures of Duan Tianong and Xiao Yan immediately stood high in the sky. Has the interior of the Forged Sword Thunder Valley also been baptized by the Soul Palace? Looking at the chaotic scene, Xiao Yan's huge soul power naturally sensed the hidden aura of the powerhouses in the Soul Palace, and said, You'll know when you go to the hall. Du Tianong didn't seem surprised. He took Xiao Yan and headed towards the knife forging hall. Squeak. There was a soft push on the door, and the door of the forging knife hall was immediately pushed open by Du Tianong. Hey, the Valley Master is back. In an instant, a number of embarrassed figures appeared above the Forged Sword Thunder Hall, but although the breath was weak, there was a touch of joy on everyone's face. Lei Zhao, you and Fair have worked hard this time. Duo Tianong walked over directly, looked at the mingling Lei Zhao and Duo Qifei, and said dotingly, Valley Master, Dad. A burst of laughter also emerged suddenly, and then in the forging hall, many strong people spoke out one after another. Among these powerhouses, there are not only the remaining masters and third masters of the Thunder Valley forging swords, but also some elder-level powerhouses. There is no doubt that the figures here are the real ones in the Thunder Valley forging swords. High level. It turns out that the senior mingling Lei Zhao brought Fair to the knife forging Thunder Valley to relieve the siege. His eyes turned slightly, and he suddenly looked at the other side. The black cages were lined up, and there were groups of eerie black. The fog kept creeping. It's still a clever calculation by adults. Originally, the sword forging Thunder Valley was blood-bathed by the powerhouses of the Soul Palace, but with the arrival of Senior Lei Zhao and Mayfair, the situation changed in an instant, which saved us from the disaster. It is obvious that Thunder Valley can have a leader like Du Tianong. Why not be prosperous? Tianong, these guys from the Soul Palace will be taken to prison at all times. Next, we will first count the casualties inside our Forged Sword Thunder Valley. The deceased gave their family a fortune, a glorious funeral, and those who should be healed. In addition, we will send guards to obliterate all suspicious people. Du Tianong gave the orderly orders, and the inside of Forgeblade Thunder Valley was also carried out in an orderly manner. Xiao Yan, Fair, the two of you, come with me. After doing all this, Du Tianong immediately left the knife forging hall. Master of the Valley Forging, I don't know whether to ask or not. The three of them headed towards the entrance of Lei Tomb, a certain valley, and Xiao Yan suddenly wondered halfway along the way. You mean Huo Xin Envoy and Soul Qinmo, right? Duan Tianhong's vicious eyes naturally detected Xiaoyan's thoughts at a glance, and laughed. Really? As the master of the Holy Flame, it is also my mission to slaughter the evil races outside the realm, so if the Forge Master gives me any of them, I think I can get some useful information. Xiaoyan thought for a while and said, Indeed, they were an excellent solution in your hands, but your current strength is not enough to solve them. I will hand them into the hands of the master of the plane of Yinhushan at that time. The high-level officials of Yinhushan may be able to rely on the two of them to investigate some useful information. Duan Tianong said slightly, The Lord of the Heavenly Plane of Shadows? When Xiaoyan heard the words, he was a little surprised. Obviously, this was the first time he had seen such a new ranking. To put it simply, that guy is the strongest in the entire Yinhushan. Even in the core area of Li Hunyu, he is also a person with a head and a face. By the way, I will take you to meet him this time when I go to the 4 continents for the competition. Duan Tianong smiled maliciously. If he finds out that I'm not a human from the ghost world, isn't it? Xiaoyan felt helpless. Don't worry, Yinhushan is very tolerant. No matter if you are a human, a ghost, or a monster, you are all treated the same. He easily sensed Xiaoyan's concerns and smiled. If that's the case, then I'm really looking forward to it. Xiaoyan grinned when he heard this. Mobile version update fastest URL. Continuing from the previous episode 1402. Okay, stop talking nonsense, let's bring out the contestants who entered the Thunder Grave first. After all, this competition has turned sour, and nearly 10 months have passed. Duan Tianong said after a while. Xiaoyan nodded lightly, and then the 3 of them also came to the valley. This is the entrance. Entering from here, it will be randomly introduced into the Thunder Tomb. As for the space scroll handed over to you, you can set it anywhere in the Thunder Tomb at will. Duan Tianong instructed carefully. Then I'll take a step first. Xiaoyan nodded slightly, then looked at the squirming void in front of him, stepped on his front foot, and was ready to enter it. Wait a minute. Looking at Xiaoyan's actions, Duan Qifei said. Fair. What's the matter? Duan Tianong asked in astonishment with a look of indifference. I'll go with him, Du Qifei said after a while. Ah. When Xiaoyan heard this, his head was covered with black lines. Obviously now Xiaoyan finally knew why Tianong always mixed himself with Duo Qifei, intentionally or not. This old guy wanted to entrust his daughter to him. Every time he thinks of this, Xiaoyan's heart aches, as if he is admonishing Xiaoyan not to make mistakes all the time. After all, there are 2 sweet wives in the family. Although Kaylin has acquiesced in Mu Yingying's existence, but Zuner still didn't know that it was just a single Mu Yingying that made Xiaoyan's head big. If he provokes some women, I'm afraid Xiaoyan's end is very bleak. Let's go, Xiaoyan muttered, and then rushed into the void with Du Qifei. Wang Om! The 2 of them just rushed into the void, and in a flash of time, they returned to the Thunder Tomb. The evil forces in the Tomb of Thunder have been expelled. I think it is the result of many seniors sleeping here who felt the crisis and worked together. Entering the Tomb of Thunder, the 2 did not stop and swam around. Du Qifei said, This is a good 3rd stage competition. It is said that there is still the existence of fighting spirit. It's a pity, Xiaoyan said regretfully. The fighting soul seems to have been controlled by the Ghost Clan from the very beginning. Although it didn't make a move, it turned into a bubble in the end. Fairdeye rolled her eyes and shook her head. How did you know? Xiaoyan asked in surprise. Grandpa Lei Jiao told me. At that time, if Grandpa Lei Jiao was not trying to protect the things in the depths of the Thunder Pond, he would definitely save the 3 fighting spirits, but it's a pity. Duo Qifei said, Forget it, there is no fate. Xiaoyan shook his head. Follow me. After a while, the 2 of them swam for a while and found that they could not distinguish the space. Immediately, under Xiaoyan's feet, the dazzling spatial fluctuations wriggled, and it was a space shuttle handprint. Wang buzzing, the space was closing, and it moved towards the Thunder Pond. Thunderpool, what's the matter? It's been a few months since we entered the Thunder Pond. Why is there no movement outside? Should you give up on us? Impossible. Those who are in the Thunder City are still here. They shouldn't be. And it is said that the owner of the Thunder Valley is very kind, so he shouldn't do such a thing. At the bottom of the Thunder Pond, one of the contestants also had nothing to do. You said, I muttered. This kind of dark waiting is the most tormenting. You all give me some peace. The foreign evil clan attacked our east continent this time, and they must have come prepared. I am afraid that the outside world has already been caught in a** battle. You are so leisurely here, but you are still complaining. Are you still human? Lu Qing, who was beside him, couldn't stand it any longer, and said in a sullen voice. Don't be angry, Miss Lu Qing, we just said it casually. After all, Yun Qi and Mu Zhe have both gone into the depths of the Thunder Pond to practice. The onlookers couldn't help but explain, after all, Lu Qing's identity is very special, but it's not they can provoke. Crash! After a while, a dazzling thunder of thunder wriggled within the Thunder Pond, and a tyrannical figure appeared slowly. This Thunder Pond is really a good place. Yun Qi Moog, headed by several people, said with satisfaction. With the mysterious effect of Thunder Pond, Mu Ji's strength was completely stabilized in the initial stage of the 3-star fighting immortal. Even Yun Qi and several other powerhouses had vaguely touched the threshold of the 3-star fighting fairy. It's messed up, but if you can live with such resources, why not do it? Is there still no movement? Yun Qi's eyebrows stood upright, and her beautiful eyes stared at the void outside the Thunder Pond and said, Forget it, just wait. Mu Zhe smiled. Wang buzzing. With the appearance of many powerhouses who entered the Thunder Pond retreat, after a while, a wriggling spatial fluctuation was slowly born in the void of the Thunder Pond. Space fluctuations? There are enemies? Yun Qi's keen soul force exclaimed directly. This power! It's Xiao Yan! Feng Yu, who was beside him, was very familiar with the fluctuations because he had played against Xiao Yan, and said in surprise. Hey, everyone, it's been a long time. As everyone's figures fell, the space fluctuations slowly took shape, and a man with a heavy ruler and a handsome figure came into everyone's sight. You bastard, I knew you were fine. Seeing this, Mu Ji's speed skyrocketed, and he punched Xiao Yan's shoulder. Obviously, the relationship between them was already very good because of the competition. Let's go, we're here to pick you up. Xiao Yan said with a smile. The matter of the aliens, resolved? Yun Qi looked at each other and said, Obviously the aliens were not good. Don't worry, it's all settled. As for the specific process, I'm afraid you will need to go back and ask yourself. Xiao Yan's laughter just fell, and the space scroll in his palm suddenly shattered, and in an instant, a touch of rare space fluctuations suddenly filled the air. Come out and establish some kind of connection with this Tomb of Thunder. Sister Lu Qing, welcome home. Duo Qifei didn't idle either. She ran down, and then came to Lu Qing and gave a big hug directly. Obviously the two women have a very good relationship, but it's a pity Duo Qifei is much shorter than Lu Qing, and because of the distance between the two of them standing above the void, a hug made Du Qifei slam into the two soft peaks on Lu Qing's body. The texture is like mutton. White jade is generally natural. Let's go. Lu Qing's pretty face was flushed by such a scene of Duo Qifei. She snorted and then sank into the space channel together, but because of Lu Qing's special identity, she was impressed that Duo Qifei was at this moment. The aura on his body was different today, and there was even a power that she couldn't see through. With the disappearance of the two girls, there was also a man with red eyes. The kind of treatment that just forged Qifei undoubtedly made their hearts warm, but there are some things, even if they can't have it, from a distance, there is a special charm. After all, it can be seen from a distance and cannot be profaned. Until now, the disaster of Dongzhou and the ratio of Dongzhou have also announced a complete curtain call. Continuing from the previous episode 1403. With the complete end of the ratio of Dongzhou, the entire Licheng continued its orderly rhythm. Although due to this sin and the baptism of the Soul Temple, the major forces in Licheng suffered varying degrees of loss, but under the wise leadership of the Master of the Forged Sword Thunder Valley, perfect policies and orders continued to emerge, and so did Licheng. Gradually it regained its original vitality. Among the Leiji Mountains, this place was originally a place for the participating disciples to live, but with the end of the East Continent ratio, many contestants also returned to their own forces, only those who won the competition in the 4 continents. The powerhouses stayed, but there is no doubt that the powerhouses who were able to stay were all one-of-a-kind existences. It's been a month since the disaster in Dongzhou. The matter in Dongzhou should be completely over, and the next step is to go to Suzhou. This morning, Xiao Yan got up early, sat in the house and muttered, thinking about the plan in mind. The 4 continents won the competition, joined the 4 courtyards of Li Hanyu, obtained the Chidu-inducing Soul Cup, restored the power of the Soul Eater, and thus obtained the Acacia Heartbroken, resurrected Mu Yingying, and the trip to the ghost world was completely over. This month has allowed Xiao Yan to restore his strength to the peak, but if he wants to reach the threshold of Samsung Do Xian with this, there is obviously still a long way to go, but don't underestimate the current Xiao Yan. The current Xiao Yan's 2-star Do Xian's complete strength, coupled with the absorption of some of the Thunder Master's origin. Basically, it is difficult for the Thunder-type Do Chi to hurt himself, plus the interference Do skills, Do Soul and many other means. Even if you don't use it, Sheng Yan is also enough to compete with the Vril-star Roshuan Powerhouse. However, the 3-star Fighting Immortal is far from being comparable to the 2-star Fighting Immortal, so as the strength increases, fighting across the ranks must also be based on the use of holy flames. Dong, dong, dong. Just as Xiao Yan was thinking, there was a rapid and powerful knock on the door. Fair. Xiao Yan didn't need to think about it to know that Du Qifei was the only one who would knock on the doors so vigorously in this thunder world. After all, this place was just like her family. Stop, Xiao Yan. I have a piece of good news to tell you. Xiao Yan just opened the door, and Du Qifei immediately said cheerfully, not at all like a lady. It seemed very different from the past. What's the matter, so happy? Xiao Yan was also amused by Du Qifei's appearance and said, in view of your help this time for our knife forging Thunder Valley, my father decided to give you a special gift. At this moment, Duo Qifei became cautiously looking around, and after confirming that no one was there, he smiled, this level of intelligence but very confidential. Blessing. Xiao Yan also had a headache when he heard it. Obviously, he didn't have to think about it. Given Duo Tianhong's obsession with weapons, it is very likely that the gift is a kind of immortal weapon, but Xiao Yan is used to using different fires. Henggu ruler, if he switched to other weapons, it would obviously not be suitable. Even if Duo Tianhong continued his immortal weapon rank high enough, it would not help. I don't know what the gift is? Xiao Yan asked tentatively, holding the last trace of expectation. It's a god, and it's the kind that suits your own attributes. At this time, Du Qifei said with great admiration, but she didn't know that the thunder power possessed by the Thunder Lord was even more tyrannical than the great heaven seed. Thunder, heavenly seed. This is a wonder of heaven and earth that can increase one's Do Qi energy. Heavenly seed? It won't be so good? Xiao Yan couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva and said in disbelief. After all, the existence of heavenly seeds can be said to be a fortune, and whether it is an auction or other places, heavenly seeds of any attribute are priceless and unmarketable, which is enough to see how precious this thing is. It's true, although my father was very reluctant, but under my repeated temptation, he agreed. Du Qifei smiled slightly. Tempted again and again? Xiao Yan asked with some doubts. Father told me, you have to guard me until that thing is completely reincarnated. So I naturally want to get some benefits for you, otherwise you will suffer more. Du Qifei's big watery eyes kept flashing, and he said innocently. This guy. Xiao Yan smiled at Duan Qifei's silly appearance. Let's go, today is the time for the gift, otherwise it will be troublesome if my father doesn't acknowledge the dead after today. After Du Qifei finished speaking, she brought Xiao Yan to go to the Thunder Valley of Forging Knives, looking like she was in a hurry. There seems to be a heavenly seed on the Huo Xin envoy. Xiao Yan murmured, and then hurriedly chased after him. Wang buzzing, the two quietly left the Thunder World and came to the inside of the Forged Knife Thunder Valley. Father, I brought Xiao Yan. On a quiet forest path, Duan Tianhong was walking back and forth in the forest. You little girl, you know that your elbows are turned out, the preciousness of heaven is. Seeing Xiao Yan and Du Qifei appearing, Du Tianhong immediately laughed and scolded. Without guessing, he knew that his daughter was with Xiao the purpose of inflammation. Woo! Duo Qifei made a face at Duan Tianhong, then left the place directly. Forging Valley Master. Seeing that there were only 2 people left, Xiao Yan immediately laughed. The ratio of Eastern continents has a total of 3 stages. In addition to the 20 people in the first and second stages who have the opportunity to participate in the 4 continents competition, we also selected 30 people in the 3rd stage this time, which can also be regarded as the competition for the participating disciples. It is a form of compensation, so this time, I will take 50 of you to the 4 continents for a test. Du Tianong said, I don't know what Feier just said about the gift of heaven. Xiao Yan also asked Duan Tianong to avoid this topic. Heavenly seed, I will naturally give you a gift. Duo Tianong said, but there was a lot of regret in his voice. Obviously, the attraction of a heavenly seed is enough to make Forge Sword Thunder Valley win over more powerhouses. Xiao Yan is cheap. Is that celestial seed on Huo Xin Envoy? Xiao Yan asked tentatively. After all, the celestial seed on Huo Xin Envoy is one of the great celestial seeds, and its power is obvious to all. To get is also to increase itself. You kid, think beautifully. Although the heavenly seed on the Fire Sinister is tyrannical, he himself has been contaminated by the evil power of the evil race from outside the territory, and the heavenly seed has also been polluted, and it is already an evil thing. Even if you have holy flame, you can't erase the evil power, Duan Tianong said. That's really a pity. Xiao Yan shook his head slightly. If you want the seeds of heaven, come with me. After a while, Duan Tianong said softly. Thank you, Valley Master. Xiao Yan was full of joy when he heard the words. Afterwards, the figures of the two also disappeared suddenly, heading towards a certain place inside the Thunder Valley. Mobile version update fastest URL. Continuing from the previous episode 1404. Wang Om, Duan Tianong and Xiao Yan disappeared instantly, and after a while, they came to the treasure pavilion in the valley. This is. Xiao Yan looked at the splendid treasure pavilion in front of him with some puzzlement, and then said, obviously he had been here once before, but he didn't notice the existence of the heavenly seed's aura. Could it be that heavenly seed is really it's here? The preciousness of the heavenly seed naturally requires extra care to protect. And our treasure pavilion in Thunder Valley is the place to store heavenly seeds. Duan Tianong said with a smile. Go! In an instant, Duo Tianong waved his hand, and a crack appeared out of nowhere in the golden prohibition above the treasure pavilion, and the two figures also directly entered it. Don't underestimate this golden prohibition, just this band. I am afraid that the 4-star fighting immortal powerhouse can only be defeated, so if there is no Du Tianong to follow, outsiders who want to enter the treasure pavilion will be as difficult as going to the sky. Crash. As soon as they entered the treasure pavilion, an overwhelming tyrannical aura emerged. Obviously, the place the two entered was very different from the first time Xiao Yan entered. The top floor of the treasure pavilion is used to store the seals of reincarnation tokens, and the second floor at the top is where the heavenly seeds are stored. After Duan Tianong finished speaking, his figure jumped over and headed straight up. Boom! The two figures had just entered the second floor at the top, and suddenly the overwhelming hidden aura suddenly filled the air, and groups of lights of different colors and energy fluctuations of different attributes slowly permeated the space. Middle. Tisk tisk tisk. I'm afraid this is the background of the Thunder Valley of Forging Knife. Xiao Yan glanced at it, and suddenly found that this was a special space that had been opened up alone. There was an extremely tyrannical force of confinement in the space, and it was even under this confinement. No power of space can be exerted. Obviously the confinement in this space is extremely strong. And in the space, the obscure aura contained in the clumps of rays of light is astonishingly similar to the taste of heaven. There are 3 fire-type heavenly seeds in the valley. I will call them all later. You can try it. As for what level of heavenly seeds you can obtain, it all depends on your fortune. Duan Tianong laughed. Thank you, Valley Master. Xiao Yan clasped his fists and smiled. This kindness is not a big deal. Wang Om! Duan Tianhong's whole body was suddenly shocked, and then he gestured some strange handprints in his hand, as if he was communicating with the light group. Come here. After a while, the 3 groups of light with scorching aura were attracted by the unique handprints in Duo Tianhong's hands, but 2 of them were bright, and 1 was dim. You can absorb it yourself. I still have things in the valley to deal with. When you finished absorbing it, it's almost time to go to the 4 continents to compete. After doing all this, Duo Tianong didn't intervene. He just left a sentence, and then disappeared abruptly. If that's the case, then I'll take a look at what these 3 heavenly seeds are. Xiao Yan also secretly calmed down, and then in this space, he carefully got a clue. The outermost confinement of the 3 groups of light is milky white, which seems to be protected by an extremely tyrannical confinement, and inside the restraint, there is an extremely hot wave. That kind of wave is undoubtedly much stronger than ordinary flames, but there is no holy flame tyrannical. Even so, its power is probably stronger than Yuo. Let's take a look at this one first. After a while, without wasting any time, the light group on the far right was called directly by Xiao Yan. Wang buzzing, the milky white light group just came 10 meters in front of Xiao Yan, and suddenly a monstrous aura of repulsion erupted. It's quite violent? Xiao Yan couldn't help laughing. 3 heavenly seeds. It seems that this Du Tianong is also a master who is willing to spend his blood. If it were an ordinary person, even if the talent is enchanting, I'm afraid this guy wouldn't treat you like this. You have a special status, and with the status of his daughter, it seems that this old guy is trying to win you over. After a while, Xiao Yan's body, the voice of Soul Eater suddenly sounded. Master? Hearing this, Xiao Yan was immediately surprised. After all, the Lord of Soul Eater has been extremely hiding his breath since the appearance of the foreign evil race in the Thunder Tomb, as if he was afraid of something. Before, I was just afraid of being discovered, so I didn't show up, otherwise there are just a few extraterritorial evil races. The Lord of Soul Eater smiled. Is it discovered? Xiao Yan also wondered. It's just some guys in Li Soul territory, old rivals. The Master of Soul Eater smiled, obviously a powerhouse of that level, otherwise Xiao Yan would be able to feel it now. You do your thing. Leave me alone. The next time I enter the 4 continents for the competition or even Li Soul realm, I will appear less often. Everything still depends on you, the Soul Eater said with a smile. Xiao Yan nodded lightly, and then touched the light group in front of him with both hands. Wang humming, the dazzling soul power suddenly poured out, and then the restriction was easily broken by Xiao Yan, revealing the tyrannical heavenly seed under the imprisonment. Little heavenly seed, Yanyan, this is a mass of khaki flames, lost the protection of the milky white prohibition, and a crystal cage with clear crystal silver only shrouded it, and even on the crystal cage, 5 small characters slowly appeared. The khaki flame, Yanyan. The power of this little celestial seed seems to be similar to that of Huoxin Tianyan, but it's just a weak Huoxin Tianyan. After thinking for a while, Xiao Yan shook his head lightly. It was clear that this little celestial seed didn't care about him. After all, I already own Huoxin Tianyan. Look at the second one. After sealing the first small heavenly seed to Zaidu, it immediately dissipated in this space, apparently returning to its place of return. Crash. The second group of light was pulled over, and this time, a sound like a stream of water sounded abruptly. Little heavenly seed, void water flame. The cyan flame kept fluttering, like an elf, which made Xiao Yan quite fond of it. After all, this heavenly seed was undoubtedly a lot more tyrannical than Yanyan. It also carries the gentleness of the water system, which is extremely suitable for the current Xiao Yan. The combination of fire and water. It's you, Xiao Yan said with a smile. As for the last light group, the whole body was dim, and its power was obviously even weaker. Xiao Yan was not even interested in touching it. The last one is a good thing, the Master of Soul Eater said on demand. With his perception, he couldn't be wrong. Damn, Xiao Yan scolded secretly, and then his eyes became strange. In an instant, he pushed out the little blue sky seed directly in front of him, and then the phantom water flame disappeared, leaving only the last ball of light. I hope you won't let me down. Xiao Yan naturally nodded his head abruptly when he heard the words of the Soul Eater, and then his heart burst into flames. The vision of the dignified Soul Eater is definitely not wrong. But just as Xiao Yan gently moved towards this heavenly seed, Duo Tianong, who had already left the treasure pavilion, couldn't help but curse in a low voice, "What a rude fellow." Quote, although this fire element heavenly seed is one of the best treasures in the Thunder Valley of our forged swords, if it can be subdued by you, it cannot be given to you. Mobile version update fastest URL.